And tonight we're going to tell you who Robert Mueller really is. There's a brand new report from investigative reporter Sarah Carter. Robert Mueller's career has been anything but impeccable. One of the worst stains on his record comes from his time in Boston, where he served as assistant U.S. attorney and acting U.S. attorney in the 80s. During this time, notorious Boston mob boss Whitey Bulger, he was actively engaged by the FBI as an informant. The relationship between Bulger and the Bureau was wrought with nothing but corruption and criminal collusion. This might explain why he's best friends with Andrew Weissman. Now, Bulger's FBI handler, a guy by the name of John Connolly, actively covered up for many of the horrific crimes that were committed by Bulger and his associates, including one instance where 4 men were wrongfully framed and convicted and imprisoned for decades, all for a murder it turns out they did not convict. Sounds like Andrew Weissman's record. The men were ultimately exonerated. A judge awarded $101 million in damages, but not before 2 of the men actually died in prison. Robert Mueller was the U.S. attorney in charge while these men were rotting in prison, while certain agents in the FBI under Mueller covered up the truth. Oh, let's see. Andrew Weissman was excoriated by 2 judges for withholding exculpatory evidence. So what did Robert Mueller know about all of this? When did he know about all of this? Now, these are questions and issues I'm sure you have not heard from your friends in the liberal media. Some members of Congress, the media, they're praising Mueller, the pillar of honesty, the pillar of virtue. They've never investigated him. They're actually just lying. It's their talking point. All the information we're telling you about is right there, right in front of the liberal mainstream media, in their faces, but they purposely ignore it because their destroy Trump agenda, that goes above all else. And the reason why is because they want Mueller to carry out this witch hunt, even if there is no evidence of collusion. And now that we know more about Robert Mueller and his past, his current moves now make a lot of sense. Mueller didn't appoint in this particular case. What did he appoint? A merry band of huge Democratic donors. He didn't do it by accident. And appointing Andrew Weissman to be, quote, his pit bull, according to the New York Times, that wasn't a mistake either. Weissman's the type of prosecutor that Mueller wants to try and bring down President Trump with. Weissman has withheld exculpatory evidence in multiple cases. He put the accounting firm Arthur Andersen out of business. Tens of thousands of people lost their jobs. That obstruction of justice case was later overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. Oh, how often do we hear about 9-0 unanimous rulings? That's what happened. Now, Weissman also robbed 4 Merrill Lynch executives of their liberty. He sent them to jail for a year. That conviction was overturned by the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals. And if you're surprised by any of this, you should not be. Robert Mueller has an agenda. He's carrying out a witch hunt. This is par for the course. All right, here with more on this before we get back to the Austin serial bomber, we have Sarah Carter and civil rights attorney, criminal defense attorney David Schoen. Fox News contributor Sebastian Gorka stays with us. All right, Sarah, you did the deep dive on this. I'm actually annoyed at myself that I didn't do it myself sooner. But the information that you have put together shows exactly why Robert Mueller picked all Democratic donors and Andrew Weissman, who has one of the most atrocious and corrupt records of any lawyer that I've ever heard. Let's go into what you found.
Well, this is exactly the reason why we see there's every reason for President Trump's attorneys to fight back on this, and President Trump as well, because if we have found out, and what we have found out is the foundation of the special counsel is built on unsubstantiated evidence from a dossier from a foreign agent, Christopher Steele, paid for by the DNC and Hillary Clinton, we have to ask ourselves, what is this special counsel for? And then when you look at the past, Sean, you see what Mueller's cases, going back to the anthrax case, going back to the 80s here with Whitey Bulger. Remember, Whitey Bulger, this mob boss that you very eloquently listed out this story, disappeared for 16 years. It wasn't until 2011 that Mueller's back, now he's the director of the FBI, that they finally get Whitey Bulger. But you know what? Mueller never answered any of those questions. Those questions that you asked at the end were the same questions that reporters were asking in Boston, that people were asking in Boston when the FBI was basically, all of this was swept under the rug. It was probably one of the most historically cases of corruption in the FBI in history. And this is what's really so important about this. I know David Schoen can explain in detail what happened here, but this really haunted Boston for some time. And it shows, you know, that Mueller's a man. I mean, right or wrong, I mean, we got to tell the story about Mueller, whether people think he's the greatest special counselor, you know, to be investigating the president or not. We're not hearing all the facts about Robert Mueller, and I think it's about time we start hearing the facts about him, Andrew Weissman, and the other people that are on this special counsel.
This is the most corrupt team I've ever seen. This is the most incestuous, corrupt. This is now beyond anything I've ever seen in my life, and it's now also coming to light.